Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, with the end of the regular season in sight, Panther City went up to Calgary to finish off their season and hopes to not only solidify their playoff spot, but solidify their spot in the playoffs. Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, of course joined by Andy.
Hello.
Andy, this is the last regular season game of the year for Panther City, and coming into this weekend, they had a pretty high chance at making the playoffs. Obviously, there's a lot of options that could happen for them to get the playoff spot, but we were kind of hoping a win would help us solidify that spot even better. But there was a lot of pieces in move coming into this last week.
Yeah, I think the NLL side calculated us as having 93% chance of making it. So for me, being the optimist I am, I was thinking less of, are we going to make the playoffs? That seems like a relatively sure thing, and more of, are we going to be able to sneak into one of those top four spots, specifically the 3 or the 4 spot?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and so we talked about it last week, but just depending on how the games fell, we could have hosted a game, or we could have been in the 8th spot. So, there was definitely a lot of things. Actually, I think you have them down on here. Like, if we could have finished as high as 3rd or as low as 8th, the chance of the home court was a win. I think you have all 4 of them on there.
Oh yeah. So basically, Rochester played Georgia the Friday, the day before we played Calgary, and if Rochester is also fighting for their playoff lives, if they beat Georgia, who we split the season with, then I think we had a chance to pass them up. And Rochester did just that. They beat Georgia on the road in is it Atlanta? I don't quite remember.
Yeah.
But they managed to beat them in a 1-goal game. So not only did they keep their hopes alive, but the first domino fell and given us a chance to pass up a couple of teams. We also needed New York to beat Albany, and New York, as they're like Rochester, they basically had to win their one game this week in order to make the playoffs. And then Colorado had to beat Halifax. That I figured was going to be one of the taller tasks, because Colorado didn't really have much to play for, with being eliminated already.
Right. Well, and unfortunately, those ones didn't kind of fall in our favor. So unfortunately, there was no home chance, at least the first round for us. But with I think it was a win, pretty much solidifying that we were guaranteed a playoff spot going into the game at Calgary.
Yes, I think that was the San Diego and Vancouver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And so, we were waiting to see if Vancouver could pull an upset. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. We'll talk about San Diego here in a little bit. But, San Diego gets the win, and that actually clinched us a playoff spot. So, there was a lot of things that could have went our way. But going into Saturday's game, I think the team in itself was like, okay, well, we're in the playoffs, but still went in on a high note. And not only that, but going into Calgary, as we pointed out last week, lots of parallels. Calgary was the last game we had last year. They still have a great team. They still have Mr. Christian Delbianco as goalie. So it's not like it was an easy task for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got their reigning MVP. The main difference with them this year was Kurt Malosky heading to his home province or town in Vancouver and setting up shop with that team, who had a real late season surge to make the playoffs. And Calgary's a team that had our number last year. We played them 3 times total, twice in the regular season, once in the playoffs. They beat us both times in the season, and then we were actually up on them going into the 4th in the playoff game before they managed to turn the corner. Of course, one notable thing about that game is Coach TK was out, so the defensive coordinator, Coach Toll, took over. So it's definitely a team that, even if we already had solidified our playoff spot and knew which spot we were going to be in, regardless of the outcome, we still want to go into the playoffs with momentum against a team we historically haven't had much success against.
Right. Well, and a couple notes pregame. The main ones, there was at least 3 players that were all questionable going in. Obviously Tony Malcolm still injured, Pat Foley was still injured, and Lentz, who you feel bad. They brought him in and he only got a half a game in, but all of them were questionable going in. So you had to think that kind of had to affect the team a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of those guys are really good defenders, and of course, well, all of them can bring some offense too, but Tony Malcolm definitely heads up the court a little more and picks and chooses his opportunities in transition. So losing all of them, I don't think any of them ended up playing in the game. And then Ronan Puech was the other scratchful with Burton Healthy and taking stuff in the dots. So it's not something you love to see, but again, given the situation, like, okay, Halifax beat Colorado, so we're essentially locked in the 7th. You might as well rest these guys and give them another week off to heal up.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure that had to do with some of the decision making. But I mean, starting off this game, unfortunately, it was another not great start for us against Calgary. So we lost the face-off, as is the theme this year. And 30 seconds in, Calgary scores, goes up 1-0, and I'm just like, oh, so that's the game that we're going to start off with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Tyler Pace has done damage against us in the past. If you're a Panther City fan, chances are, obviously, you want your team to score early, regardless of who you're cheering for. But I'd say it's almost especially so with Panther City, because we know that lots of times who scores first will dictate the flow of the game for us.
Yeah, and most time it's our opponents that kind of get that quick start. Unfortunately, I mean, we've seen it many times against teams like Vegas or Georgia or anybody like that, mm-hmm. And so kind of disheartening to start off that way, not 30 seconds in. But I will say the team did buckle down. Defense was playing a little bit better. It does seem like both the offenses, after that initial push for that first goal, kind of had some trouble being consistent. Even Calgary had some troubles with passes. But eventually, our offense kind of got things going a little bit better. Of course, Crawford and Malcolm, they were kind of doing their thing on the offensive. But Gauthier, I mean, hey, I think, if I remember right, I think his family's from around that area.
Yes, yeah, he's a hometown kid, I think.
Yeah, and anyway, he starts us off for Panther City, getting his first goal, puts us up, or not puts us up, but ties it up 1-1.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that from him. He hadn't scored in over a month, almost 2 months, mm-hmm. And so seeing a non-usual suspect provide offense early and tie things up in front of some familiar faces for him was nice to see.
Yeah, and I think he was trying to prove a point that night. He ends up having a pretty good game, as we'll talk about later. But after that, there was a couple of things. I mean, I think Calgary was just kind of trying to push us around a little bit. I know you noted that there was an illegal cross-check on Medi, but Calgary didn't score during the power play. Not only that, but both goalies getting some really good saves. Also doing a lot of outlet passes too.
Oh my gosh, man. I think I talked with you about it a little earlier, but I felt like every Christian Del Bianco save resulted in some sort of at least half-court outlet to Zach Curry or one of the other guys. Mm-hmm. And man, they are pretty to see. I just hate to see them against us.
Well, and we talked about in our other show where we talked about the playoffs, but that's what kind of got him the MVP last year, was just being able to be so versatile, be able to do those outlet passes all the time. But you hate to see it from the opponent. But anyway, so obviously Del Bianco's playing good, Damien's playing good. Fortunately for us, Will Malcolm, I mean, he showed up early in this one, gets one from up top, puts us up 2-1, and at that point, there's only 2 minutes left in the first quarter. So I was like, hey, this is pretty good for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially after that early goal by Tyler Pace, you really wanted to see how we'd respond. It took us a little while, but to grab the lead, on the road with just a couple minutes left in the first quarter was a good sign of things to come. Defense was playing top notch. Daymud was making some great saves. I know the NLL, when they talked about teams to watch out for in the playoffs, they actually highlighted Panther City in their latest episode of Lax Metrics. And speaking of all the outlet passes that Calgary was kind of thrown at us, one thing that the episode mentioned was that Panther City does a great or at least an above average job limiting one-on-one matchups between Daymud and whoever the guy with the ball is on the other side, because he doesn't do especially well in those situations. So it's important for the defense to recover, offensive guys to get out of the field, or at least catch up and basically prevent easy fast break opportunities. And that's one thing Panther City was doing really well, which is impressive against a team that relies so heavily on the transition play like Calgary.
Well, yeah, and it's something we need to see in this game against Calgary. So, having that early on was definitely good for our side. I thought we would have the lead going into the second quarter. Calgary had different thoughts with 15 seconds left or something like that. They get a score, and it's one of those times you just like, man, we had it, and then we just let it go right at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Probably the slightly lesser known Courier got one on Daymud for him, and it was the first quarter was close. I'm glad that Daymud and the defense didn't give up three or more goals. I think that's key to a lot of our success.
Well, yeah, and it definitely helped us going into the second. I mean, Del Bianco is always going to play lights out. He's always going to play top of his game, and that was obvious in the second quarter. But Panther City finally started kind of figure things out a little bit. Early on in the second quarter, I think it's, Hutchinson. A few minutes in, he gets a goal, and then Goodwin, I will say this, this is my play of the game nominee. That goal by Goodwin, I thought that was just a great goal, great effort by him. Put us up 4-2, and I was like, okay, let's keep it going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of Goodwin, that's a bit of deja vu because we saw him do the exact same kind of thing last week in the win against Albany. So it was cool to see it carry over into the game against Calgary. He really, I think, from what they said, he was drafted into the league as an offensive player, and then as he got older, kind of found his role more as a transition guy that can do a bit of both. So really nice to see him get on the board again, because we know he's a guy that when he gets going, he can help the team find offense in some unexpected places.
Yeah, and just seeing him, like you said, I mean, seeing him last week do it and then now do it this week, top knocks for him. But after that, Gauthier gets another. I mean, you noted on here an easy score. I mean, it was pretty easy score, but he made it look easy at least. Put us up 5-2, and at that point, but Calgary it's hard to take down. They actually, stopped the run. I mean, that was a 3-0 run by us, and then they get a goal. I think it was Cook that you said put on there. Yeah, put them down 5-3, but at least stopped us from continuing to score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing about Calgary, even if they were eliminated from the playoffs, they play with a lot of pride, and this is a team with a lot of players that have been playing with each other for a while. So they wanted to show out and do well in front of their fans, regardless of how soon their vacation was going to come, I guess.
Well, they knew their vacation was starting sooner than ours. So, but yeah, speaking of which, that's when things kind of derailed a little bit. In there, I mean, I saw it too. Pace crashes into Daymud, gets goaltender interference. Not only on top of that, but both, especially Calgary, they're kind of chippy this game, and they're starting to get with the Panther City, and obviously no major fights had broken out, I don't think, at that point, but a cross check against Caputo, and then some more extracurriculars, as you like to point out, put Panther City on a power play at 5-3, or 5-on-3, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's something that knowing that Calgary isn't going to make the playoffs and we are, I was a little irked, like, come on, y'all, don't bang us up and hurt our playoff chances. Somewhere mixed in there, I know Donville must have got hit somewhere as well. We'll go into him and what he did or didn't do in the second half. But yeah, the way that things were going, thankfully it led to a Showtime goal for us, because 5-on-3, I think they said it on the telecast, you're not really going to get a much easier offensive opportunity than that, just because it's so difficult for defenses that are that short-handed to be able to clog the paint and make things difficult when you've got two extra players on up the other side of the ball. So Crawford had that shot to put us up 6-3. The great thing about 5-on-3 is that, hey, that only scoring on a 5-on-3 only brings one guy out of the penalty box. So we came out of that power play with another power play that still had time to kill.
Right. And, again, I think Calgary was just kind of, I'm not going to say they were aiming for us, but they were doing something. But yeah, so it leads to another power play. Malcolm gets another score. Honestly, it's one thing that we struggled with, obviously for a few games there with power play goals, but definitely something we took advantage of this game. Crawford and Malcolm taking advantage, put us up 7-3, 4-goal lead, and you even noted Damoud getting great finishes right before the end of the half too.
Yeah, Calgary had a sequence where I think they got two or three offensive loosies, and Damien, he stood strong in there. He probably knew how important it was to finish the half on a good note and not let them cut into our 4-goal lead. So great to see that from him. Great to see the power play working, even if it was quote unquote in a easier situation with all the kind of composure that Calgary was losing at that point, letting us on those 2-man up power plays. But yeah, obviously as a Panther City fan, you love to see it.
Well, and I mean, going into halftime, up 4, I thought, yes, this is great, but as I've said before, I want to see it continue. I don't want to see us sitting on our hands, pretty much. I don't want to play the rest of the game trying to keep, what's the right phrase I'm saying? Trying to keep the lead rather than trying to win the game. Is that
right?
Is that what it's called, or something like that? There's a difference between keeping the lead and trying to win the game. And I didn't want us to come out after half trying to keep the lead. But I don't know. I mean, you kind of saw the recording or the recording after the live, showing. I mean, what did you see kind of going from halftime?
Calgary, they ended the first half with an increased physicality. It didn't work out for them, given that they allowed those 2 power play goals for us. But I think when the second half started, they were able to keep that physicality and kind of channel it in a way that wasn't going to result in bad penalties for them. I think they scored pretty early in the third quarter, less than a minute in. Jesse King got on the board. And that was all. Del Bianco got a hockey assist off that, and which is like, that's nothing new from him.
Right.
So you knew it was just a matter of time before one of those transition opportunities went their way. That's the main thing that I saw. They were still physical with us, but they weren't, quote unquote, I don't know if as chippy is the right word, but that they were in more control of their physicality. We've talked about it in previous games when Panther City is, okay, we love the physical play, but you got to cut down on those penalties.
Yeah, and I think they were picking and choosing, what they did in the second half. I mean, so yeah, you pointed out Jesse King gets the goal, cuts the lead 7-4, and it's another third quarter from Panther City that just kind of makes you shake your head. But I will say there was a couple of things that kind of went against us because I felt like we were trying to be chippy back, and that's when the penalties started hitting against us. Gash gets a 5-minute major, which I think we talked about before this, but I don't know if that should have been 5 minutes. I don't know. I mean, obviously they're, Cook from their team got 2 minutes, but a 5-minute major for us, that's really painful.
Yeah, I don't think it warranted it. I mean, I would want to see footage of what constitutes a 2-minute minor illegal cross-check and a 5-minute major. Like, yeah, Gash should have been sent to the penalty box for that. 5 minutes was a bit much, and who knows, maybe Cook kind of retaliating for his guy getting knocked over might have added to that. Like, it made Gash's cross-check look worse than it actually was, because it led to what might have ended up being a skirmish.
Well, right, and I think to your point, I think a 5-minute is more like he was blatantly going after the player rather than a 2-minute where, oh, hey, he could have been playing for the ball or could have been playing something else, but it just happened to happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the only thing I could think of. But yeah, that puts us 4-4. Unfortunately, Calgary takes advantage, gets another goal at 7-5. Still on power play for Calgary, and then like I saw it happen, and I didn't catch it in the replay because unfortunately I never went back and looked. But Donville, I mean, he gets, if I remember right, he gets slammed into the boards, right?
I don't quite remember what happened to him. I know they were calling it an upper body injury. Yeah. So I don't know whether he just took a shot to the ribs too hard or what. I know later on Messenger got sandwiched into the boards pretty good, and that one they definitely needed the training staff out for. So yeah, I don't remember what happened to Donnie. It might have happened like in the middle of a substitution or something where they pulled him out. But yeah, he did not play in that. I don't think he played at all in that third quarter.
Yeah,
and I mean it honestly showed on offense, because we've got great offensive players, but without Donville running the point from up top, they just certainly seemed discombobulated.
Well, and that's not to say we didn't try some things. I mean, obviously, you still have Malcolm out there. You still have Crawford. You still got, I mean, pretty much the rest of your offense. I mean, even Goat was out there, but it's hard to run it when you have certain things set up for certain people.
Right.
Or certain positions, I should say. And it's just, it doesn't work out for you. But, without him being out there, and then, like, I think you put in there, Taylor got called for illegal cross-check on Burton. That one, it just seemed like they were definitely trying to rough us up, knowing, hey, they're going to the playoffs next week. But, yeah, battle for Lucy, it leads to King getting a score. And next thing you know, it's 7-6. It's another third quarter where Panther City lets the team get back in the game.
Yeah, and it was a shame, especially going into halftime with a 4-goal lead on the road. Like, we've seen games where we had a pretty good lead well into the second half. I know the San Diego game was one of them. So you don't like to see us give up points like that. And even with Calgary getting that penalty on Taylor for his hit on Burton, who knows? Maybe by that point they were like, hey, they don't have Donville out there right now, so their power play is going to be a bit off kilter than it otherwise would be.
Right, and I mean, there's certain things that set other things in motion, and I mean that's kind of unfortunately how games go. But leaving the third quarter, we're still up by 1. I guess that's a positive, but you could definitely feel kind of the air in our balloon slowly leaking out the side. And then it continued in the fourth because, again, we lose another face-off. Calgary gets the ball. Again, not 30 seconds in. They get another goal, ties it up 7-7 very quickly into the fourth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they looked a lot better than what their record would suggest. I think they were pretty much below, maybe hovering around 500 the rest of the year. Obviously, we haven't had much success against them recently, and so who knows, maybe on some level, those kind of thoughts like, oh, we haven't beaten these guys. Maybe those came creeping in. But, once they tied things up, the confidence that I had as a fan going into halftime, it had essentially evaporated by that point.
Yeah. And it was just, there seemed to be a little bit of messy play in between those minutes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Calgary gets the ball back again, and then they score again. That puts it 8-7. Now, I will say this. There was that goal that put them up 8-7, and Panther City did something that, honestly, I wish they would do more, and that's answering back quickly. They were able to get a face-off win. I think it was Knox. Yeah, Knox gets a goal that ties us back up, not 20 seconds after their last goal, and then after that, Goodwin gets the ball back, not 30 seconds after that, and put us back up 9-8. And I was just like, see, you can come back. You can come back quick. You don't always have to do it slow and methodical and, hey, let's chip away one at a time. You can score quickly. And so that at least gave me a little bit of hope because it was just a quick answer back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly what you want to see a team do if they lose the lead, especially in the way we did. Knox, it's awesome to see him doing that well. And, even though Donville is out, this is kind of the silver lining of it. Will Malcolm's pass to Brandon Goodwin was from behind the net. And I don't know if I've seen that play from us this year where the guy playing behind the opposing goalie actually passed it over him to a player cutting in the middle and was able to get a quality shot off. Because you think either the goalie's net, heck, maybe even his helmet, or a defender is bound to knock that ball away. But Malcolm got off a clean pass to Goodwin, and he was able to put it in to regain the lead. So that was really cool to see. And like I said, exactly what you want to see given how quickly Calgary was catching up to us.
Yeah, and I thought, at least this gives us a chance to keep it close in the fourth quarter and possibly have a chance to either pull away at the end or if we can force overtime or something. But you said after that, unfortunately, pace from Calgary, a diving goal. I mean, again, good effort by them. You hate to see your opponents do good plays, but that was a good play by him. Put him up, put him tied 9-9. Now you did say, and you did talk about this, and I'll talk about it just for a second. Daymud, on a fast break from Cornwall, stops it, and then another close shot, and it's like almost like Daymud was good at blocking those fast breaks for a few minutes.
Yeah. This was, I don't know if I would call it his Achilles heel, but he generally doesn't seem as necessarily dominant when he's stuck in one-on-one situations against players that are coming at him full speed, like Cornwall and then Curtis Dixon were. So for him to be able to kind of compose himself and be able to, Hayden Dixon, but for him to be able to stop those balls where it's literally just mano-a-mano, him against a transition player or whoever it may be, shows the great growth on his part. Now, again, you hope to minimize the number of times he's going to be faced with that, especially in close games. But yeah, he was playing really well in those situations late.
Yeah, and he was, honestly, he was trying to play the best he could during that because, again, we have players that are, in and out, and we were, Anyway, look, I think all in all, Daymud, I think, had a pretty good game. I mean, I think his save percentage, oh my gosh, let me check real quick. Obviously not top percent, but
it was very good. It in a loss, it was about as good as you can have. I think he might have had a better one in one of that first heartbreaker against San Diego.
Right.
Well,
and it goes to show you that he does need that extra help on defense. I mean, so many times has he had a really good games and they just unfortunately don't come out with a win. But great stops by him. I like your note in here. I remember when this happened. Medeiros, seems like he's going to be on a fast break, and then Turf Monster comes up and bites him, and he's just like, oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, I mean, I guess it was a little awkward. He was like backpedaling and whatnot. I don't remember whether it was a defender that was running up with him that got him the ball or what, but I remember thinking like, oh, Medi's got him. Oh, no, he just tripped.
Well, and it was almost, again, it could have been Medi from last week, but after that, even Caputo, I think, wasn't he shut out this game? I mean, he usually is really good about those rebounds and being at the right spot at the right time, but Del Bianco is just that much better of a goalie, unfortunately.
Yeah, Caputo, the team was able to find him up close to the net, but Del Bianco's got the lateral quickness to be able to block a variety of shots, no matter what the offense throws at him. And actually, credit to Christian Del Bianco, because in the first half, there were times when he seemed like I thought they were going to sub him out because he seemed that banged up. And, Damien had a moment like that himself when I think it was Pace or whoever like kind of crashed into him. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, these goalies were definitely bringing their A game.
Right. Well, and that was especially, apparent during the last stretch of this game, because we're tied 9-9, only a few minutes left, and I thought, okay, well, let's at least hold on for overtime or get a goal and get this win and go home. Unfortunately, Calgary, they've had our number the last few years. They continue to have our number. Pace gets a goal with a minute 30 left. Actually, it was the exact same. I think according to the stat sheet, it's the exact same people who were involved in that other goal with 7 minutes left. King and Cook, with the assist to Pace, put them up 10-9. And then, unfortunately, on top of that, with a power play with 12 seconds left. And I think we take out Damien by that point? So we tried to make it 5-on-5.
I don't remember if we had gone empty net by that point or not. We might have, but that penalty on Goodwin, you could tell he was not happy about it. Me as a fan was like, maybe it was a penalty, but it was kind of, come on, refs, you're gonna call that with less than a minute in the game left.
Right. Especially a close game.
Yeah. It's was it that egregious? But I mean, spilled milk.
Yeah. Well, and so, they take advantage of it, get a goal, go up 11-9. By that time, it was only 12 seconds left, and game was pretty much over, which for Calgary, I guess is a great win to end your season. That is the end of their season, thankfully. But for Panther City, unfortunately, it was a loss, 11-9. We'll talk about our final thoughts here in a minute, but it's just another game. It's another game that you had this feeling early on, hey, we can do this, and then it just kind of slips through our fingers.
Yeah, and then I'll talk about my final thoughts later, but it's not a... I wanted us to win it just for the mental, getting over that mental roadblock of hey, one of those teams that's had our number the past couple of years, we were able to beat them. We've got another team potentially coming up that's also had our number the past couple of years. We can put them next on our hit list. And so, it was disappointing in that regard. And then especially having that 4-goal lead going into the half, that's not something that you want to see lose. Again, Calgary, technically we did knock them out of the playoffs with our win against Albany the weekend before. So maybe there's something a little personal there. But it was disappointing for sure.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about our final thoughts here in a bit. But of course, that leads us into the final for the regular season, at least. The final Mr. Andrews stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what stats do we have for this final regular season game against Calgary?
Well, probably the most surprising one of all is that face-offs were dead even. Tyler Byrne took 23 of the 24 of them and won 12 of them. And then Liam Pan took one as well and didn't win it. But we went 12 for 24, so dead even. I think Zach Courier is their primary face-off guy. They mix things up with Matsuoka as well. But so it was nice to see improvement on that side of the ball, because obviously you want to be able to give your team extra possessions early on. We alluded to it earlier, but both Damude and Del Bianco, two of the better goalies in the league. Obviously Del Bianco, the reigning MVP, and Damude making great strides. Damude saved 47 out of 58 shots, and Del Bianco saved 39 out of 48. So both were right around 81%. Damude was faced with 10 more shot attempts, which I don't want to say that was a difference, but that doesn't necessarily help things. So hopefully the defense can help bring that number a bit down next game with some heads-up play. Panther City looked pretty good on the power play in the first half, but that might have been a little deceiving considering those were both 5-on-3 opportunities, which obviously, hey, you want to convert on those regardless. So it's nice to see that. They went 2 of 3 on power play opportunities that first half. They didn't have a single one in the second half, though. So finished 2 for 5 in that category. Meanwhile, Calgary, 2 for 3. So a wash in terms of the points scored, but we had more opportunities and just couldn't take things home. Donville had 2 first half assists before he left the game. Obviously his presence was missed greatly in that second half. Beyond that, Will Malcolm had a solid game with 5 points, 2 goals and 3 assists, and Crawford had 6. He scored once and had 5 assists as well. They couldn't quite stop or counter Jesse King. He had 8 points total with 2 goals and 6 assists, and seemed to really kind of keep things going along with Tyler Pace. So there were a few good things, though. Gauthier, we brought him up earlier. He scored his first 2 goals since February, so it's good to see him get on the board. He's a guy that I don't know that his minutes are necessarily down this year, or whether he's just not able to find the spots, or he's playing a bit of a different role with some more of the guys we got on the team this year with Knox and Sheridan. But in any case, it was nice to see him get on the board. And then also nice to see Brandon Goodwin score 2 more goals for, I think this would make him with 5 goals in the past 2 games. So pretty good stretch for him. He's a veteran guy. He knows how to put the ball in the net. So yeah, in a loss, there were a few good things to look at. And so, yeah, nice to see them do well.
Well, and I think Goodwin's consistent play in these last 2 games is not only a good thing for the team, but it's a good thing that he's getting hot now. Like, towards the end of the season, going into the playoffs, you definitely want those players, those extra players who are getting points rather than your major stars. But I will say, and we'll touch on Donville later, but I mean, gosh, I hope he comes back. But but anyway, that is, of course, the final for the regular season. Mr. Andrews' stats of the game leads us into our cool cat plays of the game. There was a couple of good ones. I think Malcolm had a really good goal at one point. I will say, even Showtime's goal was something. It was off. It was just kind of one of those offhand, kind of easy looking goals that probably wasn't that easy. Mm-hmm. But I touched about it earlier. That goal early on, by Goodwin, he just, it was a good transition goal. Not only that, but it showed like what he's willing to do for this team. And it just, he made it look so easy. But Goodwin in the second quarter, when he put us up 4-2, that was honestly one of my favorite goals that I've seen from him in the last 2 games, to be honest. But I mean, the home one was obviously great to be there. But no, it was awesome. That's my cool cat play of the game. What about for you?
There were a few that stuck out to me. It's hard for me to choose one over the other. I mentioned the Malcolm pass to Goodwin for his second goal of the game in the fourth to put us up 9-8. I think that was when, Malcolm was behind the net and basically passed it over Del Bianco's head to find Goodwin. Thought that one was really neat. I don't know if that's one I'd want them to do every game, with the risk of a turnover. but cool to see it. Showtime and Malcolm also had a great give and go as they were both kind of running towards the basket and be like playing, I guess, kind of like hot potato with the ball until someone decided to score it. I'm probably gonna, my top two would have to be the two defensive transition goals in the second quarter. Right before Goodwin scored from the Sellers pass, Liam Patton got it to Evan Messenger, who got it to Dylan Hutchinson. And Hutchinson's a guy, he doesn't score too often, so it's nice to see him when he does. I don't remember if he scored last week, but he scored someone recently as well. And so to see him get some action on the offensive side is pretty nice. And of course, Sellers to Goodwin, it wasn't like a long outlet or anything. It was almost like a nice Jerry Rice catch. It was like yards after the catch, basically. Goodwin caught the pass from Sellers. He ran it all the way down and found his spot and got past Del Bianco. So, yeah, the Hutchinson goal and Goodwin's first goal have got to be my plays of the game.
Oh, yeah. And again, there was a few others that were really good too, but man, it was just nice to see. Of course, that's our cool cap plays of the game. Leads us into our big cap players of this game. For me, look, we touched on earlier, he's kind of a hometown kid. I'm sure all of his family were up there and everything like that. But it was really good to see the man, the myth, the legend, the GOAT get back involved into this team. I mean, he gets 2 goals. Really good, just a solid game from him. I mean, obviously, we talked about him a lot last season. And I was glad that he was getting involved early in this year. But, not scoring since February. He was in and out the lineup a few times as well, but I'm just glad to see him back out there, especially, again, at the end of the season, right before we need him for the playoffs. So my big cat player of the game is the GOAT, Gauthier. What about for you?
I thought Bainu did pretty well in an unfortunate loss. Obviously, love seeing your goalie save over 80%. I'm going to have to choose Gauthier as one of my guys as well. Like you said, hometown kid. Awesome to see him do well in front of his family and friends. 2 goals, first time in the last couple of months. Guy that doesn't get a ton of offensive opportunities, but does his best to cash in. And one of his unsung qualities, Sheridan's kind of like this too, is that even if the team doesn't have the ability to get a shot off, he draws out the shot clock and is able to kind of kill as much time mixing it up with defensive players as much as he can as they're scrambling for loosies. So, yeah, Gauthier is one of my players. And then the other one, I think he might have been my player of the game last week as well. Brandon Goodwin, he had 3 points total, 2 goals and 1 assist. Didn't have he did have a penalty late, but by that time, I mean, realistically, the game was kind of more or less decided. So I won't hold that against him too much. Beyond that, he grabbed a Lucy and didn't have any negative stats. And so just to see, we know this is we don't want to harp on this being a down year for Medi, but with Medi kind of not having his best game and Tony Malcolm being out for it was nice to still see some transition offense come from Goodwin.
Yeah, and again, it was a solid game from him. 2 in a row, honestly, is really good from any player, but to get it from someone who you don't see it a lot of, and you see in those transition goals, great for him. Final thoughts on this game? I'll say this, 2 things, or a few things, actually. Yes, it was another game that we should have won. I feel like we had it until halftime, and then we, just let the game get away from us. I think it would have been good for the team, obviously, going into the playoffs with a win especially against a team that has had your number the last few years. Mm-hmm. But also, with how much, I mean, for the most part, going into this game, we knew where our playoff spot was. And I almost think to myself, we should have taken a page from the NFL or the NBA or anywhere else, and maybe start our starters for a little bit, but then, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're stuck at this 7th spot, and as much as a win would be nice, maybe we should have rested some of our starters, huh? And I know it's hard to do when you're in the moment, but going into the weekend, if things didn't go our way and it came down to a win and get in scenario, yes, you start everybody. But going into the game and knowing that you didn't have to win to change your spot in the playoffs or to make anything different, I think kind of hurt them in the big picture of things. And I hope it didn't hurt them going into the playoffs, but I don't know. I going back and forth on that, because on one hand it would have been good to win, but on the second hand, it's now we're stuck with uncertainty and certain players. Anyway, any final thoughts from you?
I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't know whether the Halifax-Colorado game wrapped up before tip-off of Calgary-Panther City, but knowing that, okay, if Halifax wins their game, we don't have a way of getting out of 7th, because Halifax, they have the tiebreaker. If we finish with the same record as them, they're going to have a higher seed. And then Buffalo, if we tie them, that's good because we have the tiebreaker there, but they have the tiebreaker on Halifax. So they're going to be above Halifax, I believe, because of that, or maybe the point differential comes in. But anyway, yeah, it's easy to say, we shouldn't have played guys as much, with Donville not being there and Messenger getting pretty dinged up late as well. And even Danny had taken that shot where he got kind of chop blocked or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's tough because, we went 10-8 last year. I would have loved to see us at least match that this year, especially against the Calgary team that didn't really have anything to play for. If you look at the other teams that, quote unquote, knew their season was over, I don't think any of them won unless they were playing another team wasn't making the playoffs. Yeah. So in that regard, hats off to Calgary for wanting to put on a good show for their fans, but yeah, we were unfortunately the recipients of that. So in that sense, I would have preferred just seeing some of the other guys get some run, because I think you had enough momentum coming from the Philly win and the Albany win, plus even the Buffalo one from however many weeks back, to where you could use that to carry on into the postseason. This wasn't a case like Albany essentially not needing, but needing to beat the New York Riptide in their last game, because had they lost that would have been 6 in a row for them.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I mean. Big picture wise, yeah, you look back and you think, well, maybe we should have done this, but it's just so hard in the moment. It's so hard when you're in the game and you're, especially if you're playing and you're up by 4. It's like, man, I want to keep this going, but yeah, I hate that Calgary beats us every year. I want to beat them when it counts at the end of the year at some point.
Yeah, and we even won our most maligned category in face-offs.
Yeah,
against them. So
just couldn't pull it off. But well, we leave that game with the rest of the regular season, and we look towards the playoffs. We are the 7th seed. We go against San Diego this Saturday night, 9 p.m. Central. It will be on ESPN Plus. I unfortunately will not be around for the watch party. You can actually check out our other episode we have coming out this week, where we talk playoffs, pretty much the entire playoffs. You, me, and Daniel from Proud the City, and that'll have a little bit more in-depth conversation about playoffs as a whole. We definitely touch on Panther City a lot in that podcast, but just in our usual way. I mean, well, what's a quick thing to kind of look out for in this game? And then obviously, like, what do you expect to see coming into this game?
I expect to see high emotions. just the history between these two teams. I don't think there was a fight in their last game, but I know Mitchell got into it the game before that. Last year, Patton and Stotts had a pretty good dance.
Yeah.
And I think that was in the first quarter too, if I'm not mistaken. And so, there's a lot of trash talk between these two teams, not a lot of love lost. They're both teams in non-traditional American box lacrosse markets. So we're essentially on a team, and I guess you could even say a lacrosse community as a whole, are trying to get closer to where a team like San Diego or say Georgia is getting to go. So definitely going to be high emotion. Obviously, that winner go home round adds that much more urgency. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna root for Panther City no matter how much of a David and Goliath situation it is. But yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, we touched on the other show. We've had 2 close games against San Diego, and I think this is the one that we really need. Obviously, it's win or go home, but it's so much more than that. It's a team that we talk about Calgary having our number. San Diego has had our number, and it just seems like every year it gets worse and worse, and we get a little bit closer, and then we fall back, and then we'll do good half a game, and then we'll do bad the other half of the game, and so just. I really want this team to just have a good game.
Mm-hmm.
And even like last year, that game against Calgary, even though we lost, I was like, hey, you know what? That was better than everybody expected it would
right.
be.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a better showing than everybody thought we would be. So I expect to see that this weekend. I expect to see that against San Diego. Going into our predictions, I really, and I touched on this earlier, I think for Panther City to win in San Diego, we are going to have to be the more physical team. We have to be more physical on defense and try to cause turnovers and help David. We also need to be more physical on offense. We need to take some more shots. They even touched about on hockey yesterday on one of the games. When you're getting towards the end of the game, even in the middle of the game, sometimes you just have to get shots on goal.
Mm-hmm.
And rebounds can help, or you get another shot clock reset or something. But sometimes you're trying to set up for the perfect play, and that perfect play won't come, and you just have to take chances sometimes. And so I hope this game brings out the best. I hope everybody's healthy. I hope everybody's there playing. But for us to win, we're gonna have to meet San Diego on that level, because they are that level, that step above us right now. And so if we're gonna have a chance, we're gonna have to find a way to meet them face to face. And so that being said, I am going to go with Panther City. I think Panther City, they've lost 2 close games against them, and I think it's going to sting them, and it's going to be a constant reminder. If I was Coach TK, I would show the end of that game, the fourth quarter, to both of those games, and be like, look where we were, and look how it ended. We cannot let that happen this weekend. So I'm going to pick Panther City. I'm going to say it's going to be a very tough physical game. I'm going to go 10-8.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you picked Panther City. Yeah, I agree with you. We really have to match, if not surpass, San Diego's physicality. just it's one thing that, and not only do we have to match or surpass it, but we need to do it with focus and not be sloppy and allow for silly penalties or things like that. The offense has shown that they're able to score in spurts against a Wrigley area and their defenders. I expect we might have to employ your strategy on face-off where you just kind of let the other team. Okay, Trevor Baptiste is going to probably win the vast majority of those, so you might as well defend what comes after as well as you can, as opposed to the actual face-off scrum. So hopefully with that, I am very excited to see Coach TK coach his first playoff game because, as we know, he was sick last season. Toll did an admirable job in his place, but they couldn't quite get over it. So I know Coach TK and the entire team is going to be fired up. I do think that we are finally going to get past Big Brother and manage to beat them on the road by a score of 12-11.
12 to just a one-score goal or a one-score game.
Believe me, I wish I would. It was more, but yeah.
Man, yeah. If we're gonna have a chance, we're gonna have to keep them low, and that's gonna be hard. That's gonna be tough for us. But wow, it's crazy to think that a team only 3 years in the league has made the playoffs twice, and 2 years in a row. And honestly, it just seems like they're a team that now we expect to be in the playoffs from here on.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I think I mentioned it to you mid-season, or maybe even, yes, probably mid-season. Of all these teams that have joined the league recently, I'd say by far I've had the most success early, along with Halifax. The Riptide, we thought they were going to make it this year. They weren't able to make it, so they leave the Long Island area without ever having made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Vancouver, they almost made it this year as well, but I think they've yet to make it in their short history as well. And then Vegas. Yeah, their second season didn't go nearly as well as our second season did. So for us to do as well as we have, and in a definitely not a traditional lacrosse market, is really speaks volume to the organization and the plan that they have, the guys they've put in place in terms of coaches and players, down to the equipment manager and the trainers and whatnot. So, yeah, of course, with that comes high expectations, and they're just going to get higher and higher over time. So, but hey, it is very cool to know that in 2 of the years we've been in the league, 2 of the 3 years that we're heading to the postseason. So that's good to look at.
And like you said, we locked it up a little bit better last year, but with these open, no conferences and open standings and stuff like that, it was a little bit harder for us this year. But well, man, Panther City made it to the end of the season. We made it to the end of the regular season. Playoffs are here, man. It's right here. It's right now. I can't wait. I mean, I hope. Are you going to be able to watch the game live, or do you know? Or
I should be able to. It's late enough to where I don't think I'll really have anything else going on. I don't know if there is a watch party. I don't know if I'll be able to make it out to Fort Worth that late, but I'll definitely be trying to make it out, or to at least watch the game. I might see if I can muster up some buddies who want to catch it too. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll definitely be staying up for that one.
Well, and unfortunately, I won't be around the area to watch it. I'll actually be in Houston for Texas Showdown, so
nice.
I'll be down there with a couple of friends of ours and stuff like that. So hopefully, maybe I can convince them to put it on one of the side screens or something and have everybody watch it. But I'm doubtful on that. But Anyway, I just know I'm looking forward to the playoffs. I always enjoy the playoffs, and I'm glad we made it. I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we have this opportunity. So, well, as we get ready for the playoffs, you hope for a win. I hope for a win. I think all of Panther City hopes that we can finally kind of beat up on Big Brother San Diego for the first time in a while and get a win. But maybe a close win, as you said. But as always, thank you guys for listening. Be sure to check us out online on Instagram, Facebook, X/Twitter. Of course, our videos up on YouTube. And just and enjoy the playoffs, man. This is a special time, as always. But thank you all for listening. Once again, I'm Nicholas.
And I'm once again Andy.
And we'll see you in the playoffs.
Yep. Go time.
All right.
Sweet. Cheers, y'all.
Have a good night, everybody.